In this episode, we are going to talk about this topic, fighting for your marriage alone, how to fight for your marriage. And this is episode number 76. Before we dive in, let me just say that what you're about to hear is, in this episode, is from a recording that I did for my YouTube channel. So I just want you to know that going in. With that said, let's dive in. Hey, have you ever felt like you're juggling too many balls, especially when you feel the pressure because your spouse, your wife is asking for more of your time? When you felt that, what were some of the thoughts you had about your wife, about your relationship, about what you would prefer to be happening at that moment? It's like trying to balance on a tightrope while juggling flaming bowling pins, right? Flaming bowling pins. That is impressive if that's the imagery that comes to your mind, where you feel like you're juggling all these balls and these bowling pins, and it feels a bit overwhelming if you ask me, right? It's like I'm doing all these things. I am busy, and yet I'm now being asked to spend more time at home with the family, when all I'm doing is trying to help you guys, and I'm being chastised, or I'm being reprimanded, or I am made to feel guilty. Have that ever happened to you? Have you ever felt that? Now, if you're the guy that's, burning the midnight oil, chasing success, but sensing tension at home, you're not alone, right? You're not alone. Because here's what I know. Success comes with its own set of challenges, or pursuing or aspiring for. It has its own set of challenges as you might be experiencing, especially when you find that your wife and your children are craving more of your time. And that is something you feel like you don't have much of as it is. Now, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you somehow different from many other husbands like you, right? I get it. Success, or pursuing success, demands sacrifice in many ways, right? But what if I told you that finding balance might just be the key to elevating not just your career, your business, but your entire life? Hey, I know, like you, I know this firsthand. I know what drives you. See, you are very well intentioned, very well intended, and you want so much to do everything to provide for your wife and kids. And sometimes you, like me, get your priorities mixed up. And again, it doesn't make you a bad person. It's just that the passion for those things takes over our lives. It really takes over our lives, and we feel as if we're so close, right? We're so close and almost there. And if we just had enough time, or a more understanding, then possibly things will be just okay. So here's what happens when our priorities are mixed up. And right now, your wife is wanting to pull you back into your priorities, but you don't see it that way, at least not right now. What does that do? I don't have to tell you, because you know you might be experiencing that right now. And you don't see that as she does. You see everything else but that, which we'll talk about in a few moments. And so in this video, I'm going to help you see the need to put your priorities, get your priorities right. And I'm going to show that to you without you having to sacrifice something that is not in alignment with your personal and professional goals. That you'll still have. It's just how to put all those things in order. Because here's the order that we're going to focus on in this video, and that is put God first, your wife and kids second, and work and everything else after in third and place and below, right? There is a reason for that. So I want to talk about that in this video, and I'm going to show you how to prioritize these things in a way that is still aligned with your personal and professional goals. Hey, by the way, I'm Kingsley Grant from Happier Marriage Secrets, where we are on a mission to make marriages happier again. To do that, I'm here to help you build a stronger marriage so that you can achieve business success without compromising your faith and your family.
So, the big question is this. How is it possible that you have a happier marriage when you feel like you've tried everything? Your spouse isn't making an effort. You're exhausted. You feel like giving up. Or there's so much hurt that's taken place between you and your spouse. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers.
So, where do we start? Now, a good place to start is with what I just mentioned, and that is with this quote. Well, let me say this quote first, right? And here's this quote I want to give you. If you want to be successful at everything else, you first need to be successful at your relationship with God. Let me say that again. If you want to be successful at everything else, you first need to be successful at your relationship with God. I would love to hear your thoughts about just that quote. So if you would even now, right now, leave a comment in the comment section about this quote. If you want to be successful at everything else, you first need to be successful at your relationship with God. Just put in the comment, agree, right? Agree with quote. Let's put it that way. Agree with quote. And I know what you're referring to. So I would appreciate that. Now, so putting God first is the first order of things. Now, that sounds simplistic. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, especially when you have all the demands and the responsibilities you feel you have pulling at you almost every single day. So if you are like me, when I'm working on getting things done and feel like I'm so close to breaking through, even though I know the importance of putting God first, if I'm being honest, at times, I don't. It doesn't fall in that order, right? I find that when I think about the necessity and the need to do that, what it requires me to do is to break away from what I'm focused on and working on, and I feel like I can't afford that time. Is that only me, or that is something true about you as well? I feel like I must keep going so that I don't lose momentum. How foolish of me. Because if you stop and think about it, who is giving me the wisdom to do what I'm doing? Who is giving me the breath that I breathe? Who is giving me the health I need to do the things I do? Right? You know, one of the things I remember in the Old Testament where God made this statement to his people, he said, do not forget who gave you the power to make wealth. Don't forget, remember who gave you the power to create wealth. Because God's people were becoming so busy with everything else and doing everything else but to give time to the one who were making them successful. And God said, remember, I am the one who gives you the power to make wealth. So in our busyness and in our pursuit, I believe it's important to remember this, that God is the one who does that, right? Now, so if you find yourself like me, then I wanted to say to you, there's no judgment here, because I too have been there, as you heard me just said. But we must remember this very important, very memorable, very well-used verse of Scripture, where the Bible said in Matthew 6:33, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. And here is a part that really fits our conversation today. It says all these things, means everything else, all these things will be given to you as well. I know I need to remember that myself. I know I need to keep that in mind, that God promised when we put him first and seek his kingdom first and the things that matters to him first, he promised. And you know what? God is faithful. God can be trusted. I know sometimes I heard people say, man, I don't know if I can trust God, because I prayed and I believed God and hoped for certain things that it never happened that way. And I get it. But my friend, listen, throughout the ages, God has proven himself to be faithful. I'm sure you could attest to that as well. So here's something I want you to remember. If you want to be successful at everything else, you first need to be successful at your relationship with God. If you and I want, right? If you want to be successful at everything else, you first need to be successful at your relationship with God. You know, in Proverbs 3 verse 6, the Bible says this, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths, right? He'll make straight your path. So when you're able to do that, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have a more peaceful life. And what's going to happen is that the tension and the anxiety that you feel sometimes about, and the worry that comes into play, that will be taken care of. Because when we are faced with these moments, we begin to stress. We begin to feel sometimes depressed, because we feel like we are being taken away from what we want to do so much. And sometimes anxiety fills our heart because we feel anxious about what we're working on, whether it's going to work or not. We feel anxious or even depressed about our relationship because our wife is, not that she's been a bad wife or she's trying to hurt, but it seems like she's making my life more depressed because she is now asking me for time, and the kids are, all of that responsibility begins to weigh on me, weigh on you. Now, you would agree with me that outside of your relationship with God, your wife and kids are the most important people in your life. If I was to ask you, outside of God, who are the most important people in your life, I am almost certain that you would say your family. And you know what? I would say this very same thing. But the question is, when we look at what we're doing and how we're treating our family, is our actions aligned with that statement? Again, I'm not trying to guilt you, but we have to be honest with ourselves, right? And the reason why they are the most important people in our lives, because they deserve our time. Because they are the most important. They deserve our time. They deserve our love. They deserve our attention, right? They deserve all those things. And I know you know that, but do we do those things, right? And how do you go about making that happen? I want to encourage you to schedule. As you schedule everything else, schedule regular time, date nights or date days or whatever works for you, with your wife, with your family, with your children, and make certain that you're there to model for them spiritual growth, whether it's praying with them, reading the Bible with them. There's a couple that I follow on social media, which I admire, how they many times put out there how they're, praying with their son and they're spending time together as a family and Bible open, and they're not doing to show or to impress. That's their life. And I really admire that. And I hope that you're finding a way to make that as a part of your everyday life as well. And when you are with them, can I encourage you to be present? I know this is hard. I find it hard myself, but be present and engaged when you're with them, right? Not to be on your phone, as many people do, and say it's work. Try to get away from that as much as possible, because I want you to remember this. Your wife and kids are your greatest legacy. Invest in them wisely. They're your greatest legacy. So it's important to invest in them wisely. Now, as I share this with you, you might be wondering, why do I not talk about your wife and how she needs to understand what it is that you're trying to do so you can do what you need to do, right? And I know there's a time and a place for that, and I agree. But the reason why I'm focusing on you, because you are the head of the household and the one that is responsible for leading your family, right? Your wife and your kids. God has called you to that, and God's going to hold you accountable. And I know it's not something that I'm saying lightly, because I have to also remember that in my own life, right? But I know you know this. But again, you're thinking what you're doing is for them. And that's the way I thought. And I do still think what I do is for my family and to give them the best life possible. And so there's no argument here from this. But I guess at what's the opportunity cost, right? So on the surface, I agree with you. But you need to do something different if you want different results. And I'm placing this responsibility on you. And that's why I'm simply saying, fight for your marriage alone. This is your turn, your chance to take the initiative, to lead the way, right? To be the one that act as a leader, the initiator, especially in the way things are going in our world today. Your family needs you. We need the men in our world today to stand up and step up and be the leaders that they need to be. So I can almost hear you thinking that your wife should be more understanding and supportive. And if she was, things would be a whole lot better, right? And I get it. I understand that. But sometimes we have to understand they're just trying to get us back to what matters, what's more important, right? Somebody has to make sure the important thing in our lives, our relationship with our family, gets the attention it needs. And she is being that person. Remember, that's the person that God gave you as a helpmeet, right? That person who will help you in times like this where you're so focused and one-tracked. And I get it. We need to have our wives, who is our other half, come alongside and try to get us back on track. Don't see it as, she's been a pest or she's been nagging. See it as God's gift to you to help you to find balance in life. This is where you need to guard your heart against resentment, because I find so many times you can feel resentful of the fact that she is trying to get you away from something that you want to do. Right? It's important that you understand your wife's perspective. Right? Why is balance and family and time and spiritual growth so important to her? Well, because God may be using her to get your attention. God may want to have her be the one that reminds you of these things, because we can get so lost easily in our work. You also want to look at, what does she need from you? She's simply saying, I just need for you to pay attention, to love me, to be there. And my friend, I get it. I've been guilty of that many times. And my wife have to remind me in subtle ways or in direct ways about what it is that's most important. Because at the end of our lives, my friend, nothing else matters than our relationships. Nothing matters other than our relationships, our business, our finances. We can't take that with us. But it's the legacy that we leave behind, the impact we made in our family, right? The idea of how we were able to model for them and teach them the things that can take them to in their own lives, right? Try to see things from her perspective and to understand her needs, but also try to see what God is saying to you through her. This is where we as husbands need to be reminded of what the Bible says about husband, love your wife, or husband loves your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her in Ephesians 5. That's a tall order, but it's a very important one. So if you want a happy marriage, you learn, I think someone said it this way, if you want a happy marriage, you need to learn to listen to your wife, even when she is saying things you don't want to hear, right? Even when she's saying things you don't want to hear. So make time for your kids and your wife, right? Schedule regular date nights and family outings. Make sure to put your family first, even when you're busy. They deserve your time, your love and attention. Make sure to schedule regular time to date them and have family outings and spiritual growth activities and church and Bible studies and prayer time and fun times and, walk times, whatever it is. Schedule those things, right? Put it on the schedule and get involved with your children's activities, their lives. Spend time with them outdoor, doing things with them, attending sporting events, school activities, and other things that they're involved in. Be there. Those are the memories they're going to have of you. Not the time you've been working and making a living and making their lives better. They appreciate that. But the memories, that's something else. But also important, this is also important, take time out for yourself. Self-care, right? It could be reading a book, going for a walk, do something that is fun for you as well. Not just work, right? You've got to take a break sometimes to de-stress. Remember, your wife and your kids are your greatest legacy. Invest in them wisely. Invest in them wisely. I love the scripture in Psalm 90. It says, "Teach us, God, to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom." To gain a heart of wisdom. Walt Disney says this, the most important time you spend is the time you spend with the people you love. The most important time you spend is the time you spend with the people you love, right? Now, if you're too busy to spend time with your wife and kids, then you're too busy. You're too busy. And we need to change that. So today, I hope as I talk about how you can fight for your family, it may be a bit different take on what fighting looks like. But this is one way to fight for your family and to do that alone, to take the initiative, to lead in this manner. Remember, here we go again. Remember, success at work should be mirrored by success at home. Why do I have a hard time saying that word today? Let's try it. Leave all that, mistakes. I mean, hey, I'm just doing this one take. I don't have to go back and edit this piece. Here we try it again. Remember, success at work should be mirrored by success at home. Got it. There we go. We're not aiming for a perfect juggling act of these things. We're aiming for a life well balanced, putting God first, prioritizing your wife and kids, and balancing your work and family life is not easy, but it's possible. When you make these things, and I've just described a priority, I can tell you, you're going to have a happier and more fulfilling life. You're going to have that. There's no question about that. So if you're currently concerned about the state of your marriage and would like a way to get some feedback on how to make some positive changes to your marriage, let me invite you to take the Happier Marriage Assessment. And you can find that at happiermarriagesecrets.com/quiz. happiermarriagesecrets.com/quiz. Less than 90 seconds. You can knock it out, get immediate results and feedback as to what that looks like. So take that quiz today. happiermarriagesecrets.com/quiz. And the links will be in the description that follows this video. And there you have it. I hope you found this recording to be helpful. And if you do, I would love for you to share this with at least one other spouse. I would also love to hear your thoughts. You can always DM me on Instagram at Kingsley Grant. I'd love to interact with you there as well. And all the links that you have heard mentioned will also be in the show notes that follows this episode. And our announcer will now give you some final instructions.
We've come to the end of another exciting show, and if you enjoyed this podcast, 1. Make sure you give this show a rating and review. 2. Subscribe to the show to get all new releases. And 3. Get your complimentary copy of the 5 Secrets to a Happier Marriage ebook at kingsleygrant.com/HMS ebook. Again, it's kingsleygrant.com/HMS ebook. See the link in the show notes. Do it today. Don't delay. Thanks so much for listening, and make sure you tell one other spouse about this show, or better yet, share it with them. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May he turn his face toward you and give you his peace, both now and forever.